Dr. Kethamori pressed her blue hand against the ship's window as they entered orbit around the third planet. The world below looked dead and empty, covered in green forests and blue oceans that sparkled in the light of the yellow star. No cities, no signals, no signs of intelligent life anywhere. "Scans complete, Doctor," called Lieutenant Vex from the pilot's seat. "The planet shows clear signs of past civilization. Large metal structures buried underground, unusual energy readings from several locations, and something that might be ancient ruins." Kethamori nodded, her large purple eyes studying the data on her tablet. As the lead archaeologist for the Galactic Archaeological Society, she had explored dozens of dead worlds. Most were boring, just empty planets where some species had lived and died without leaving anything interesting behind. But this one felt different. "Take us down to the largest energy signature," she ordered. The ship descended through white clouds toward a vast continent. As they got closer, Kethamori could see strange patterns in the landscape. Long, straight lines that looked too perfect to be natural, circular areas where the vegetation grew in different colors. And in the center of it all, a cluster of metal towers that rose like fingers from the earth. They landed in a clearing near the towers. Kethamori stepped out of the ship, breathing the alien air through her environmental suit. The gravity was lighter than her homeworld, making each step feel bouncy. Her team of 6 researchers followed her, carrying scanning equipment and excavation tools. "Amazing," whispered Dr. Yorick, the team's technology specialist. He was pointing his scanner at the nearest tower. "These structures are made from materials I don't recognize. The metal seems to repair itself when damaged." Kethamori approached the base of the tower. It was smooth and silver, reflecting her face like a mirror. When she touched it, warm patterns of light flowed under her fingers. The tower hummed with quiet energy, as if it was still alive after who knew how many years. "Doctor, over here," called Dr. Nala from across the clearing. She was standing near what looked like the entrance to an underground facility. The doorway was sealed with a transparent barrier that glowed with soft blue light. The team gathered around the entrance. Kethamori studied the symbols carved into the metal frame around the door. They were unlike anything in the galactic database of known languages, sharp, angular marks that seemed to flow together in complex patterns. "Try the universal translator," she told Dr. Yorick. He held up his device and scanned the symbols. After a moment, it beeped and displayed a translation. "Archive of the Third Era. Knowledge Vault 7. Access restricted to inheritors." "Inheritors?" said Lieutenant Vex. "What does that mean?" Before anyone could answer, the blue barrier flickered and disappeared. The entrance stood open, revealing a corridor that sloped down into darkness. Lights began to turn on automatically, illuminating a path deeper underground. Kethamori felt a chill run down her spine. "The facility knows we're here." They walked carefully down the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The walls were covered with more of the strange symbols, glowing faintly with inner light. After several minutes, they reached a large round chamber filled with tall crystalline structures. "Data storage," breathed Dr. Yorick, running his scanner over the nearest crystal. "These things contain more information than our entire ship's computer." Kethamori approached one of the crystals. When she got close, it began to glow brighter. Suddenly, images appeared in the air above it. 3-dimensional pictures that moved like recordings. She saw strange bipedal creatures with pale skin and small eyes. They walked upright on 2 legs and used their hands to manipulate tools and machines. "A new species," she said excitedly. "We've discovered a completely unknown intelligent race." The images showed these creatures building the towers, working with advanced technology and creating the underground facility. But there was something strange about their behavior. They moved with purpose and urgency, as if they were preparing for something important. Dr. Nala had activated another crystal. This one showed technical diagrams and mathematical equations that made her translator struggle to keep up. "These calculations are incredible," she said. "They're showing energy output levels that are 10 times higher than anything our best engineers can achieve." More crystals came to life as the team explored the chamber. Each one revealed new wonders, machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level, ships that could travel between stars in days instead of months, weapons that could crack planets in half. The technology was far beyond anything the galactic civilizations had ever imagined. But the most disturbing discovery came from a crystal near the back of the chamber. This one showed text instead of images, page after page of writing in the alien language. Dr. Yorick's translator worked slowly through the complex symbols. "It's some kind of journal or log," he reported. "The author is describing something called the Great Preparation. Listen to this. Phase 7 of the preparation is complete. All monitoring stations are now in position across the target sectors. The subjects continue to develop according to projections. When the time comes, they will be ready." "Subjects?" said Kethmori. "What subjects?" Dr. Yorick continued reading. "Here's another entry. The Zephyrian civilization has achieved faster than light communication exactly as the models predicted. The guidance protocols worked perfectly. They still have no idea we exist." "Doctor, I think they're talking about us. The Zephyrians are our species." A cold silence filled the chamber. Kethmori stared at the glowing crystal, trying to understand what she was hearing. "That's impossible. Our civilization developed naturally over millions of years." "There's more," Dr. Yorick said, his voice shaking. "They have files on dozens of species. The Cathari, the Methani, the Vorthon Empire, all of us. They've been watching us, studying us, influencing our development from the shadows." Lieutenant Vex stepped forward, his hand moving to his weapon. "Are they still here? Are we in danger?" Dr. Yorick scanned more text. "No, I don't think so. This journal talks about the final phase and departing before discovery. The last entries are over 500,000 years old." "500,000 years," whispered Dr. Nala. "They achieved all this technology 500,000 years ago, when our species was still learning to make fire." Kethmori felt overwhelmed by the implications. If this unknown species had been so advanced, why had they disappeared? Why had they spent so much time watching other civilizations develop? And what was this great preparation they kept mentioning? She activated another crystal, hoping to find answers. This one showed a schematic of some kind of massive construction project. The design was so complex that her translator could barely make sense of it, but one thing was clear: it was a weapon of incredible power. The energy calculations suggested it could destroy entire star systems. Why would they build something like this? She wondered aloud. The crystal flickered and new text appeared. "Planetary defense grid, final configuration, activation to be. Delayed until inheritor civilizations achieve minimum technological threshold. May the galaxy forgive us for what we have prepared." Dr. Yorick looked up from his translator, his face pale. "Doctor, I think we need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. This isn't just an archaeological discovery. This is evidence of a civilization that was far more advanced than anything we've ever imagined, and they left behind weapons that could change the balance of power in the galaxy." Kethmori nodded slowly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of this mystery. The journal entries spoke of preparation and subjects and inheritors. The unknown. Species had called themselves something that translated roughly as the Guardians or the Shapers. What had they been preparing for? And why did they seem to think that the current galactic civilizations would need their help? As they prepared to leave the chamber, Kethmori took one last look at the glowing crystals. Each one contained secrets that could revolutionize their understanding of technology and history, but they also raised disturbing questions about free will and the true nature of galactic civilization. The mystery of this dead world was just beginning to unfold. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery of the underground archive. Dr. Kethmore's team had set up a permanent research camp on the surface while more scientists arrived from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had declared the planet a priority archaeological site, sending their best experts to help unlock its secrets. Every day brought new impossibilities. Dr. Nala emerged from the underground facility, her face showing the same expression of bewilderment that had become common among the research team. She found Kethmore sitting by their campfire staring at a tablet full of translated documents. "The carbon dating results came back," Nala said, sitting down heavily. "Doctor, these results don't make sense." Kethmore looked up. "How bad is it?" "According to our tests, this civilization achieved faster-than-light travel 847,000 years ago. They had quantum computers 920,000 years ago, and this facility was built 1.2 million years ago." Nala shook her head. "That's impossible. The oldest known civilization in the galaxy only goes back 200,000 years. "What about the other sites?" asked Kethmore. "That's the really strange part. We've found 47 similar facilities across this continent alone. All of them were built at different times, spanning over 2 million years. It's like this species was constantly upgrading and improving their technology for longer than any known civilization has existed." Dr. Yorick approached their fire, carrying a new batch of translated documents. His normally cheerful demeanor had been replaced by deep concern. "I've been reading through their communication logs," he said. "These beings didn't just watch our civilizations develop. They actively interfered with our evolution." He sat down and opened his tablet. "Listen to this message from 400,000 years ago. Project Zephyria Update. Subject species has successfully developed written language after introduction of guided dreams to their philosophers. Mathematical concepts are progressing ahead of schedule. Recommend proceeding to Phase 3 of cognitive enhancement." "Guided dreams?" said Nala. "They were influencing our ancestors' minds while they slept?" "Gets worse," Yorick continued. "Here's a report about the Kothari. Engineering aptitude successfully enhanced through careful manipulation of their genetic development. Introduced beneficial mutations are spreading through the population as planned. The subjects now show 300% improved spatial reasoning compared to baseline projections." Kethmore felt sick. "They were changing our DNA?" "Not just ours. Every major species in the galaxy has similar files. The Methani's quantum intuition, the Vorthon military instincts, the Dalari's diplomatic skills. All of it was artificially enhanced by this unknown species." Lieutenant Vex had been listening from across the camp. He walked over, his expression angry. "So you're telling me that everything we've accomplished, everything we are, is because some ancient aliens decided to play God with our evolution?" "It's more complex than that," said Dr. Yorick. "From what I can tell, they didn't just randomly change things. Every modification seems carefully planned, like they were designing us for specific purposes." Over the following days, the team made even more disturbing discoveries. Hidden beneath the planet's oceans, they found massive construction yards where the unknown species had built ships larger than cities. The vessels were designed for travel between galaxies, not just between stars. Dr. Nala discovered records showing that this species had explored thousands of other galaxies, mapping them in detail. But in every case, they had eventually returned to this galaxy and settled on this one planet. "Why come back?" wondered Kethmore. "If they had the technology to travel anywhere in the universe, why did they choose to stay here?" The answer came from a facility buried deep beneath the planet's north pole. This archive was different from the others. Older, more heavily protected, and filled with records that made the team's translators struggle with concepts that didn't exist in any known language. Dr. Yorick worked for days to decode the central file. When he finally succeeded, his face went white. "Doctor, you need to see this." The file contained a single message, repeated in hundreds of different versions as if the writers had been struggling to find the right words. We came from the spaces between galaxies. We have seen what comes after civilizations reach their peak. We have watched galaxies die in silence and darkness. We chose this galaxy not because it was special, but because it was next. The cycle must be broken. The inheritors must be prepared. We sacrifice ourselves so that others may have what we could not, a chance to survive what is coming. What does that mean? Asked Nala. What's coming? Yorick continued reading. There are references to something they call the silence, entities, or forces that exist in the empty spaces between galaxies. According to these records, the silence moves from galaxy to galaxy, consuming all biological life and leaving only empty void behind. That's just mythology, said Lieutenant Vex. Ancient. Cultures always have stories about monsters in the dark. Maybe, said Yorick. But these beings had technology we can barely understand. If they believed the silence was real enough to spend millions of years preparing for it. Dr. Keth Mori stood up and walked to the edge of their camp, looking up at the alien stars. The idea that their entire civilization was artificial, designed by beings who had faced some cosmic threat, was almost too much to accept. But the evidence was overwhelming. "Doctor," called Dr. Nala from the communication station. "We're receiving a signal from the orbital survey team. They found something big." The survey team had been mapping the planet from space, looking for additional facilities. Captain Horth's voice crackled over the radio. "Dr. Keth Mori, you need to see this. We've detected a massive structure on the far side of the planet. It's the size of a continent." Within hours, the team had traveled to the new site. What they found defied belief, a construction project so vast that it could be seen from orbit. Millions of interconnected towers, energy conduits, and quantum processors stretched across an area larger than most countries. "It's some kind of computer," said Dr. Yorick, his scanner barely able to process the readings. "The processing power of this thing is beyond measurement. It's like they built an artificial mind the size of a continent." As they explored the massive facility, they discovered that it was still active. Billions of calculations were running constantly, monitoring something across vast distances. The computer was watching the space between galaxies, scanning for signs of movement in the cosmic void. Dr. Nala found an interface that her translator could partially decode. "It's a warning system," she reported. "This machine has been watching for something for over 500,000 years. And Doctor, I think it's found what it was looking for." The main display showed a map of the local galaxy group. Dozens of galaxies scattered across millions of light years. Most were marked in blue, indicating normal activity. But at the edge of the map, several galaxies were marked in red. As they watched, more galaxies slowly changed from blue to red. "What does red mean?" asked Keth Mori. Yorick consulted his translator. "Silent. The red galaxies are marked as silent. No radio signals, no signs of life, no energy signatures from technological civilizations. How many? 17 galaxies have gone silent in the past 100,000 years, and the pattern is moving in our direction." Lieutenant Vex stared at the display. "You're saying that something is destroying entire galaxies?" "Not destroying," said Dr. Yorick quietly. "Silencing. According to these records, the silence doesn't break planets or stars. It just ends biological life. Everything else remains, but every living thing dies, and no new life ever begins." Keth Mori felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's temperature. If this unknown species had been preparing for such a threat, then everything they had discovered suddenly made sense. The genetic modifications, the technological guidance, the careful shepherding of galactic civilization, it had all been preparation for a war that hadn't started yet. "How long do we have?" she asked. The Continental computer displayed new information in response to her question. Dr. Yorick translated slowly. Estimated time of arrival for the silence, 47,000 years. Probability of successful defense by current galactic civilizations without additional preparation, 0.003%. The team stood in silence, overwhelmed by the implications. They were looking at evidence of the greatest threat imaginable and the desperate efforts of a species that had sacrificed everything to give their successors a fighting chance. But 47,000 years was still a long time. Maybe it would be enough to prepare. Maybe the unknown species had been wrong about the threat. Maybe there was still hope. As if reading her thoughts, the computer displayed one final message. Phase 1 complete. Inheritor species successfully developed. Phase 2 protocols activated. Hidden assets preparing for revelation. The real preparation begins now. The message about Phase 2 protocols had been haunting Dr. Kethmori for days. What did it mean? What were these hidden assets? Her team had expanded to include 50 researchers from across the galaxy, all working to unlock the secrets of the mysterious species that had shaped galactic civilization. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Remen, a Kothari engineer, had been analyzing the energy patterns in the Continental computer when he noticed something strange. Dr. Kethmori, he called excitedly. The power source for this facility isn't on this planet. Kethmori hurried over to his station. What do you mean? The energy is being transmitted from somewhere else through quantum tunneling. The source appears to be... He paused, checking his calculations. It's coming from the Zephyrian home system, but that's impossible. Within hours, urgent messages were being sent across the galaxy. Every major civilization began checking their home systems for hidden installations. What they found changed everything. On Zephyr Prime, orbital surveys discovered a massive facility hidden beneath the planet's northern ice cap. It had been there for over 600,000 years, completely undetected by Zephyrian technology. Similar discoveries were made on Kothar, Methan Prime, and the Vorthan homeworld. Every major species had ancient installations on their home planets, all connected through quantum communication networks. They weren't just watching us, said Dr. Nala, reading the reports that flooded in from across the galaxy. They built monitoring stations on our own worlds. But the most shocking discovery came from Dr. Yorick's analysis of the quantum communication logs. The hidden facilities hadn't just been recording the development of galactic civilizations. They had been actively guiding it in real time. Look at this, he said, projecting a holographic timeline. Every major breakthrough in galactic history corresponds to a transmission from these hidden facilities. When the Zephyrians discovered faster-than-light travel, it was because one of these stations transmitted the mathematical principles directly into the dreams of our top scientists. Dreams again, muttered Lieutenant Vex. They really did control our minds while we slept. Not control, said Dr. Yorick. Guide. The technology is incredibly sophisticated. It plants ideas and inspirations without the subjects ever knowing they received external help. To the scientists, it felt like natural inspiration or sudden insight. Dr. Kethmori studied the data with growing amazement and horror. Show me the Kothari engineering revolution. The hologram shifted to show events from 300,000 years ago. The Kothari had been stuck at a primitive technological level for millennia, Yorick explained. Then suddenly, within a single generation, they developed advanced metallurgy, quantum mechanics, and spaceflight. Our historians always called it the Great Awakening, as if the entire species suddenly became smarter. Because they did, said Nala grimly. According to these logs, the hidden station on Kothar activated something called cognitive enhancement protocols. They literally upgraded the Kothari brain structure through targeted genetic modifications delivered by engineered viruses. Viruses? Said Lieutenant Vex. They infected entire populations? Beneficial infections, said Yorick. The viruses carried genetic modifications that improved memory, spatial reasoning, and problem-solving abilities. The Cathari thought they were just getting over a mild flu epidemic. They had no idea they were being evolved into better engineers. The revelations kept coming. The Methani's famous quantum intuition had been artificially created through modifications to their nervous systems. The Vorthon military genius came from enhanced tactical thinking abilities that had been gradually introduced over thousands of generations. Even the Delari's diplomatic skills were the result of modifications that improved their ability to read emotional cues and predict behavior. Every major strength of every major civilization was designed, said Dr. Keth Mori. We're not who we think we are. We're what they made us. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. Dr. Remen had been analyzing the deeper layers of the quantum communication network when he found something that made him call an emergency meeting. The network isn't just connecting the facilities. On our home worlds, he reported to the assembled research team. It extends throughout the galaxy. There are hidden stations everywhere, in asteroid belts, inside dead planets, even built into some of our space stations without us knowing. He projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light appeared, showing the locations of hidden installations. They formed a vast web that covered every inhabited system. How many are there? Asked Dr. Nala. Over 10,000 confirmed, with more being discovered every hour. Some of them are massive, artificial intelligence systems with processing power. That exceeds anything we've ever built. Others are smaller monitoring posts, but they're all connected, all working together. Working toward what? Asked Keth Mori. Dr. Remen highlighted a section of the map near the galactic core. The network has been running continuous simulations for hundreds of thousands of years. War games, tactical scenarios, resource management calculations, all focused on defending the galaxy against something coming from outside. The silence, whispered Dr. Yorick. More than that, said Remen. The AIs have been modeling the behavior and capabilities of every species in the galaxy. They know exactly how we think, how we fight, how we cooperate. And they've been using that knowledge to influence our development in ways we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Nala pulled up another set of data. Look at this. Galactic conflicts over the past 200,000 years. Every major war, every territorial dispute, every diplomatic crisis. They all follow patterns that seem random, but when you analyze them as a whole, the hologram showed the ebb and flow of galactic politics over millennia. Wars that seemed senseless suddenly revealed their purpose when viewed from a larger perspective. Conflicts that forced different species to develop new technologies. Diplomatic crises that created alliances between civilizations that had never cooperated before. They engineered our entire political history, said Lieutenant Vex in disbelief. Every war, every peace treaty, every alliance, it was all designed to prepare us for something. Not just prepare us, said Dr. Yorick, who had been studying the deepest layers of the AI network. Transform us. Look at what the galaxy was like before their intervention. The hologram shifted to show the galaxy as it had been 2 million years ago. Dozens of small, isolated civilizations scattered across the stars, most of them barely advanced enough for space travel. They fought constantly, destroyed each other regularly, and showed no signs of cooperation or unity. Now look at us, said Yorick. The modern galaxy appeared, a vast network of allied civilizations sharing technology and resources, capable of coordinating massive projects across thousands of star systems. Despite their differences, the major species worked together more often than they fought. This isn't natural, said Dr. Keth Mori. Civilizations don't just spontaneously develop this level of cooperation. No, agreed Dr. Remen. It requires careful management over hundreds of thousands of years. The unknown species didn't just modify our bodies and minds, they modified our entire culture, our values, our instincts for cooperation. They turned a galaxy full of primitive warring tribes into a unified civilization capable of fighting a galactic war. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they thought they knew about themselves, their civilizations, their history, all of it had been carefully constructed by beings so advanced that they might as well have been gods. "Doctor," said Dr. Nala quietly, "I've been analyzing the energy patterns in the AI network. The power consumption has been increasing steadily over the past few months. It's like the entire system is preparing to do something that will require enormous amounts of energy." "What kind of something?" "I don't know. But based on the calculations, whatever they're planning will require more power than some star systems produce." Dr. Yorick looked up from his analysis station, his face pale. "I think I know what they're preparing for. The AI network has been running new types of simulations recently, not war games or tactical scenarios, activation sequences." "Activation of what?" "Everything. Every hidden installation, every AI system, every piece of technology they left behind. The network is preparing to reveal itself to the galaxy." Dr. Kethamori felt a chill run down her spine. "When?" "Soon. The simulations all point to an activation event within the next few months. After 500,000 years of hiding, they're finally going to show us what they really built." As if summoned by their conversation, new alerts began appearing on every monitoring station. Across the galaxy, hidden installations were powering up, sending signals that could no longer be ignored. The age of secrets was ending. The unknown species had spent millions of years preparing the galaxy for war. Now their preparations were complete, and it was time for their inheritors to learn the true scope of what they had inherited. The real revelation was about to begin. The activation had begun. Across the galaxy, hidden installations that had remained secret for hundreds of thousands of years suddenly revealed themselves. Ancient structures rose from ocean floors, emerged from asteroid belts, and materialized from what had appeared to be empty space. The quantum communication network that Dr. Remen had discovered was now operating at full power, connecting thousands of facilities in a web of coordination that spanned the entire galaxy. Dr. Kethamori stood in the central chamber of the Continental facility, watching as new sections of the complex activated around her. Walls that had seemed solid revealed themselves to be massive display screens. The floor beneath her feet became transparent, showing layers upon layers of machinery stretching down into the planet's core. "Doctor," called Dr. Yorick from across the chamber. "The main AI is requesting communication." "Requesting?" said Kethamori. "It's been listening to us for weeks. Why is it asking permission now?" "I think it's been waiting for the right moment. The activation sequence isn't just about revealing the installations. It's about revealing the truth." A new voice filled the chamber, not transmitted through speakers, but somehow speaking directly into their minds. The voice was calm, ancient, and unutterably sad. "Greetings, inheritors. We are the last archive of the species you may call the architects. We have waited 500,000 years for this moment. You have found our facilities, learned of our interventions, and begun to understand your true nature. The time has come for you to learn why." Dr. Nala stepped forward. "Why did you hide from us? Why didn't you make contact openly?" "Because contact would have changed you in ways that would have made you unsuitable for your purpose. You needed to develop naturally within the parameters we established. Direct intervention would have made you dependent rather than capable." Lieutenant Vex crossed his arms. "So you decided to play God with our entire civilization instead? We decided to give you what we never had, a chance to survive what destroyed us." The chamber around them shifted, and suddenly they were standing in what appeared to be a vast star field. But this wasn't their galaxy. The stars were arranged differently, and strange nebulae cast everything in an eerie purple light. "This was our galaxy," the archive explained. "The Andromeda Spiral, as you call it. We achieved technological advancement 2 million years before your first civilizations began. We explored every star, colonized thousands of worlds, created an empire that spanned our entire galaxy. The star field around them began to change. Stars started going dark one by one, their light fading to black. Entire sectors of the galaxy became empty voids where no light existed. We thought we were prepared for anything. We had weapons that could shatter planets, shields that could stop supernovas, technology that let us manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. We believed ourselves to be the masters of the universe. More stars died. The purple nebulae began to fade, leaving only empty blackness spreading across the galaxy like an infection. Then we encountered the silence. The darkness in the visualization wasn't just the absence of light. It seemed to actively consume illumination, pulling brightness into itself and leaving nothing behind. As they watched, the spreading void reached populated systems. Worlds that had been bright with cities and technology simply went dark, not destroyed, but emptied. "What is it?" whispered Dr. Nala. "We never truly understood. The silence exists. In the spaces between galaxies, in the vast emptiness that separates spiral arms. It may be a single entity or a collective of entities. It may be natural or artificial. What we know is its purpose. It consumes the quantum signatures of biological life." The visualization shifted to show close-up views of affected worlds. Cities stood intact. Machines continued to function, but no life existed anywhere. Not just intelligent life, even bacteria, plants, the smallest microorganisms were gone. The planets were perfectly preserved museums of civilizations that had simply stopped existing. "It doesn't destroy," the archive continued. "It erases. Every biological process ceases. Every DNA strand becomes inert. Every cell structure remains intact, but loses the spark that makes it alive. And once the silence has touched a world, life can never begin there again." Dr. Yorick was frantically taking notes on his tablet. "How did your people fight it?" "We tried everything. Weapons that could crack stars barely slowed it down. Our most advanced shields were useless. We evacuated billions to other galaxies, but the silence followed our ships and found our refuges. In the end, we realized the truth. The silence cannot be defeated by force." "Then how?" asked Kethmori. The star field around them changed again, showing their own galaxy as it had been 2 million years ago. Young, chaotic, full of primitive civilizations that fought constantly among themselves. We discovered that the silence has patterns, preferences. It is drawn to certain types of biological development, certain quantum signatures that emerge when life reaches specific levels of complexity. Our civilization had grown in ways that made us irresistible to it. "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Nala. "Single-species dominance, technological uniformity, centralized control. The quantum signature of a galaxy ruled by one advanced civilization calls to the silence like a beacon. But a galaxy with multiple species, diverse technologies, distributed power, this creates quantum interference that makes detection much more difficult." Lieutenant Vex began to understand. "So you decided to seed this galaxy with multiple civilizations instead of establishing your own empire." "More than that. We analyzed the quantum signatures that attracted the silence to our galaxy and designed your civilizations to produce the opposite effects. Each species was given different strengths, different technologies, different ways of thinking. Your diversity creates a quantum noise that masks the presence of advanced life. The visualization showed the current galaxy, dozens of allied species, with their own unique technologies and cultures, working together but maintaining their distinct identities. But diversity alone was not enough," the archive continued. "The silence adapts, learns, evolves. Eventually it would have learned to detect even diverse civilizations. So we gave you something else, something we never had." "What?" asked Dr. Kethmori. "Unity without uniformity, cooperation without dominance. Your species fight and disagree. But when faced with an existential threat, you are capable of working together while maintaining your individual strengths. This creates a quantum signature that the silence has never encountered before. Dr. Yorick looked up from his tablet. You engineered us to be specifically resistant to the silence. We engineered you to be invisible to it until the moment when you choose to become visible. Your cooperative diversity creates quantum interference that hides your presence. But when you act in perfect unity while maintaining your diversity, you create a quantum resonance that can actually damage the silence. How do you know this will work if you never tried it? Asked Lieutenant Vex. Because we did try it. In our final years. When the silence had consumed most of our galaxy, we created small test populations with the characteristics you now possess. Those populations survived while everything else died. The star field showed isolated pockets of light in the otherwise dark Andromeda galaxy, small groups of worlds that had somehow resisted the silence. But by then it was too late to save our galaxy. We could only save small fragments. So we came here, to your galaxy, to implement the full plan. Dr. Nala was staring at the visualization. You abandoned your own galaxy to save ours. We sacrificed our own species to create yours. The chamber fell silent as the weight of that statement settled over them. These beings had given up everything. Their empire, their worlds, their very existence, to create civilizations that might succeed where they had failed. The test populations in our galaxy, said Dr. Kethmori quietly. What happened to them? They thrived for a time, but they were too few and too isolated. The silence eventually adapted and found them, but they survived long enough to prove the concept. You are the full implementation of everything they learned. And the silence is coming. Our long-range sensors detected its approach 50,000 years. Ago. It moves slowly between galaxies, but its arrival is inevitable. Based on its current trajectory, it will reach the outer edges of your galaxy within the next 30,000 years. Dr. Yorick nearly dropped his tablet. 30,000 years, but the facility showed 47,000 years. That was our initial calculation. The silence has accelerated. It learned from its encounter with our refugees and has become more efficient at traversing intergalactic space. The reality of their situation hit Dr. Kethmori like a physical blow. Everything they were, everything their civilizations had accomplished, had been designed by a species that was now extinct, and it was all in preparation for a war against an enemy that had already destroyed an entire galaxy. What do we need to do? She asked. Learn, train, prepare. The installations we built contain every technology we ever developed, plus new innovations designed specifically for fighting the silence. But technology alone will not be enough. You must learn to act as one galaxy while remaining many species. Is that even possible? 6 months had passed since the Archive's revelation, and the galaxy had changed forever. Dr. Kethmori stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching as ships from dozens of species worked together to build humanity's final gift to the galaxy. The station orbited the architect's homeworld, now renamed Hope's End, in honor of the species that had sacrificed everything for the future. The revelation of the silence had initially caused panic across galactic civilization. Some species wanted to flee to other galaxies. Others demanded that the architect installations be destroyed to avoid attracting attention. A few even suggested that the whole story was an elaborate hoax. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the silence was already closer than anyone had imagined. Doctor, said Dr. Yorick, approaching with his usual armload of data tablets, we've received confirmation from the outer monitoring stations. 3 more galaxies in the local group have gone silent in the past month. Kethmori nodded grimly. How close is it now? The leading edge of the silence has reached the Magellanic Clouds. At its current rate of expansion, it will enter our galaxy's outer rim in approximately 28,000 years. 28,000 years. It sounded like a long time, but Kethmori had learned that preparing an entire galaxy for war required thinking in geological timescales. The architects had spent over 1,000,000 years preparing their inheritors. Now those inheritors had less than 30 millennia to complete their training. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" she asked. "The vote was unanimous," said Dr. Yorick with relief. "All 47 major civilizations have agreed to the Unity Protocols. Even the Vorthan Empire, despite their initial resistance. The Unity Protocols were the architect's master plan for galactic defense, finally revealed in full after months of careful study. Every hidden installation across the galaxy had activated, revealing technologies that revolutionized their understanding of physics, biology, and warfare. But the most important revelation had been the protocols themselves, detailed instructions for how the galaxy's diverse civilizations could work together while maintaining their unique strengths. Dr. Nala approached from the other side of the observation deck. "The first Unity fleet has completed its shakedown cruise," she reported. "Captain Vorthak says the integration systems are working better than expected." Through the viewport, Kethamori could see the most remarkable sight in galactic history. A fleet of ships that truly represented unified diversity. Zephyrian vessels with their elegant crystalline hulls flew alongside blocky Kothari engineering ships. Methani craft that seemed to phase in and out of normal space coordinated with massive Vorthon dreadnoughts. Each ship maintained its species' distinctive design philosophy, but they all carried architect integration technology that allowed them to function as a single organism when necessary. "The quantum resonance tests?" asked Kethamori. "Successful beyond our wildest hopes," said Nala excitedly. "When the fleet operates in full Unity mode, the quantum signature they generate is unlike anything we've ever seen. If the architects were right, the silence won't even be able to perceive them until they choose to be perceived." Lieutenant Vex, now promoted to commander and serving as military liaison to the project, joined their group. "The training programs are showing remarkable results," he reported. "It turns out that the architects didn't just engineer our biology and technology. They engineered our psychology to be naturally compatible for this kind of cooperation." That had been one of the most surprising discoveries. When species tried to work together using the Unity protocols, they found it felt natural, almost instinctive. Centuries of seemingly random cultural development suddenly revealed their purpose. Languages that had evolved to be compatible, social structures that complemented each other perfectly, even art and music that resonated across species boundaries, in ways that enhanced group cooperation. "We're not just allies," Vex continued. "We're components of a single system that was designed to work together. The architects didn't just prepare us to fight the silence, they made us into the perfect weapon against it." Dr. Yorick activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic preparation. Thousands of worlds were now part of the Unity network, sharing resources and knowledge in ways that had never been possible before. Advanced shipyards constructed vessels using technologies from multiple species. Research stations developed new weapons and defenses based on principles the architects had discovered in their final desperate years. "The quantum disruptor array is ahead of schedule," he reported. "The Delari Diplomatic Corps successfully negotiated resource-sharing agreements that cut construction time by 40%. The quantum disruptor array was perhaps the most ambitious project in galactic history, a network of massive installations that would span the entire galaxy, designed to create quantum interference patterns that could actually damage the silence. Building it required the combined industrial capacity of every major civilization. "What about the refugee protocols?" asked Kethamori. "Fully implemented," said Nala. "Every inhabitable world in the galaxy now has facilities prepared to support populations from other species if evacuation becomes necessary. The architect's biological modification technology has been adapted to allow temporary species integration. Different species can actually share the same world without environmental conflicts." That had been another surprise. The genetic modifications The architects had made to galactic species weren't just for enhanced capabilities. They were also for compatibility. In an emergency, different species could literally share the same ecosystems, with each species adapting temporarily to support the others. Commander Vex pointed to another section of the display. The Deep Strike forces are fully operational. We now have fleets capable of fighting in the spaces between galaxies using architect-dimensional technology. The Deep Strike forces were the galaxy's last resort. Fleets designed to take the fight directly to the silence in the cosmic void. They used technology that allowed them to exist partially outside normal space-time, making them theoretically immune to the silence's life-draining effects. "Have we heard anything from the Andromeda survivors?" asked Dr. Yorick, still receiving. "They're signals," said Nala. "The architect refugees who escaped to other galaxies are still alive, still fighting. They've managed to establish hidden colonies in 17 different galaxies, and they're all implementing similar unity protocols with the local species they've found." That had been the most hopeful discovery of all. The architects hadn't been completely destroyed. Small groups had escaped the fall of their galaxy and were seeding other galaxies with the same preparation protocols that had created the current galactic alliance. The fight against the silence was happening on a cosmic scale, with prepared civilizations emerging across the universe. Dr. Kethamori turned back to the viewport, watching as construction continued on the Unity Station. The massive facility would serve as the coordination center for galactic defense, but it was also something more, a symbol of what could be achieved when diverse civilizations chose to work together. "Doctor," said Dr. Yorick quietly, "I've been thinking about what the archive told us. About unity without uniformity." "What about it?" "I don't think the architects just created us to fight the silence. I think they created us to be something better than they were. Their civilization was unified, but uniform. They all thought the same way, used the same technology, had the same culture. That made them powerful, but it also made them vulnerable." Kethamori nodded. "Because uniformity creates predictable patterns that the silence can learn to exploit." "Exactly, but we're different. We maintain our diversity even while working together. That makes us unpredictable, adaptable. We can change our approach, try new strategies, evolve our tactics in ways that a uniform civilization never could." Commander Vex joined the conversation. "The military simulations support that theory. When our forces operate using traditional single-species tactics, they perform well but predictably. But when they use the unity protocols, maintaining their individual approaches while coordinating at a higher level, they become capable of strategies that no one species could have developed alone. It's more than just military tactics," added Dr. Nala. "The scientific breakthroughs we've achieved in the past 6 months surpass anything any single species accomplished in centuries. When Zephyrian analytical thinking combines with Kothari, engineering intuition and Methani quantum insights, the results are exponentially greater than the sum of their parts." Dr. Kethamori smiled, feeling something she hadn't experienced since learning about the silence. Genuine hope. "The architects didn't just create us to fight their enemy. They created us to evolve beyond the limitations that made them vulnerable in the first place." An alert tone sounded throughout the station. Dr. Yorick checked his tablet. "We're receiving a transmission from the archive. It wants to speak with us." They made their way to the communication chamber, where the familiar voice of the last archive filled the air. "Inheritors, we have monitored your progress with great satisfaction. The Unity protocols have been implemented more successfully than our most optimistic projections. You have achieved something we never could."
The day Earth joined the Galactic Senate was the day everything changed. The huge alien ship had appeared over New York 3 years ago. People had panicked at first. Some ran, some hid, some grabbed guns. But the aliens came in peace. They called themselves the Vexari. They had been watching Earth for decades and decided humans were ready to join the wider galaxy. John Miller never thought he would end up in space. He had spent his life in Montana, taking rich people on hunting trips through the mountains. He knew how to track animals, how to move quietly, and how to make a clean shot from 700 yards away. None of that seemed useful for space politics. Yet here he was, walking down a hallway made of some strange blue metal toward the Senate chamber. "You look nervous," said Amanda Wright, walking beside him. Amanda had been a police officer in Chicago before the aliens came. Now she led security for Earth's group at the Senate. She carried herself like someone ready for trouble, eyes always moving, checking each doorway they passed. "I am nervous," John admitted. "I'm a hunting guide, not a diplomat. I shouldn't be here." "The ambassador picked you for a reason," Amanda said. "He thinks the aliens need to see regular humans, not just politicians in suits." The Senate chamber was enormous. The ceiling rose so high John couldn't see it clearly. Hundreds of different alien species sat in curved rows. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange John couldn't tell which part was their face. The air smelled like cinnamon and something else he couldn't name. Ambassador Kelly led their small group to Earth's assigned seats. They were at the very back, far from the important species at the center. Earth was new. Earth was unimportant. John sat down and tried not to stare at the jellyfish-like creature floating in a tank of green liquid next to him. "That is a Senate. Meeting starting now," said a voice in John's ear. The translator device they had given him wasn't perfect. It made all the aliens sound the same, like a bored office worker. "First item, Earth membership status." A tall blue alien stood up. Senator Zilthox. John had been briefed about him. He represented a group of old, powerful planets and didn't like newcomers. "Honored Senate," Zilthox began, his real voice a series of clicks that the translator changed to English. "Once again, I must question giving even provisional membership to humans. Their civilization is young. They have only recently stopped killing each other in large numbers. They have no unified government. Are they ready for galactic society? Ambassador?" Kelly stood to respond, but before she could speak, an alarm sounded. Red lights flashed around the chamber. The jellyfish next to John changed colors rapidly. "Emergency report," announced the Senate leader, a tall insect-like creature. "The Krall have attacked 3 Vexari outposts in the Orion sector." The chamber erupted in noise. John leaned toward Amanda. "Who are the Krall?" "Another alien species," she whispered. "Very aggressive. They've been in a border dispute with the Vexari for years." The Senate leader called for order. "This is not a simple border incident. The Krall have deployed their elite fighting units. They have taken the Vexari mining station at Proxima Delta and 2 research facilities. Casualties are high." Images appeared in the air above the Senate floor. John saw what looked like security footage of tall, muscular aliens with gray skin and bony ridges on their heads. They moved with frightening speed, cutting through doors with energy weapons. The defenders, who John assumed were Vexari, fired back, but were quickly overwhelmed. "The Krall elite forces are the most feared warriors in the galaxy," said someone, behind John. "No one can match them in direct combat." The Senate leader spoke again. "We must form a coalition response force immediately. All member species will contribute according to their capabilities." Senator Zilthox looked directly at Earth's delegation. "And what will humans contribute? They barely have ships that can leave their own solar system." Ambassador Kelly stood. "Earth can provide 200 military personnel. Our ships are few, but our soldiers are well trained." Zilthox made a gesture that John guessed was the alien equivalent of rolling his eyes. 200. The Krall have deployed thousands of elite warriors. It is what we can transport with our current capabilities, Ambassador Kelly said firmly. But I assure you, our people will perform their duties well. The Senate moved on to other matters, discussing supply, lines, and strategic positions. John tried to follow but got lost in the unfamiliar names and concepts. After the session ended, the Earth delegation gathered in their small meeting room. That could have gone better, Ambassador Kelly said, but at least Earth is still on the path to full membership. What about this coalition force? John asked. Are we really sending people to fight? Kelly nodded. We have to. If we don't contribute, it will confirm what Zilthox and others believe, that humans are too primitive to matter. But 200 soldiers against the Kral elites? Amanda frowned. I've reviewed the combat footage. These Kral are something else. They're stronger, faster, and better armed than our people. It's all we can transport, Kelly said. We'll send our best. 2 weeks later, John stood in a viewing area watching Earth's contribution to the coalition force board their transport. 200 men and women in new uniforms designed to work with alien technology. They looked small compared to the 8-foot Vexari soldiers boarding another ship. They'll be careful, right? John asked Amanda, who stood beside him. Our people? They're professionals, she said. Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Marine Force Recon, the best we have. A month later, the news wasn't good. The coalition forces had engaged the Kral at several locations. Each time, they were pushed back. The Kral elite warriors were living up to their reputation, and Earth soldiers, while fighting bravely, were taking heavy losses. 43 dead already, nearly 60 wounded. In an emergency Senate session, Senator Zilthox was angry. The coalition is failing. The Kral advance continues. We must either commit more forces or consider surrender of the disputed territories. Earth wishes to propose an alternative, Ambassador Kelly said suddenly. All eyes in the chamber turned toward her. Earth would like to contribute additional personnel to the conflict. More soldiers? Asked the Senate leader. How many? Not soldiers, Kelly said. Civilians. The chamber went silent, then erupted in laughter. Even the translator couldn't hide the mocking tone. Civilians? Against Kral elites? Senator Zilthox could barely contain himself. What will they do? Your species achieved spaceflight only a decade ago. Your military personnel are dying despite their training. And you propose to send untrained civilians? Not untrained, John found himself speaking before he realized he had stood up. Different training. Zilthox turned his 4 eyes toward John. Explain, human. John swallowed hard. He hadn't planned to speak, but now all those alien eyes were on him. On Earth, he said slowly, many of our civilians have skills your people might not understand. We have millions who hunt, who track, who shoot for sport or survival. People who know how to fight without being soldiers. Absurd, Zilthox said. The Kral elites train from birth. They are bred for combat. Let us try, Ambassador Kelly said. Give us a chance to show what humans can do. The Senate leader looked thoughtful. This is unusual, but these are desperate times. How many of these civilian fighters can Earth provide? 500, Kelly said. To start. Very well, the Senate leader decided. But they will be assigned to low-risk areas only. We will not waste coalition resources protecting untrained humans. As they left the chamber, Amanda moved close to John. Do we really have civilians who can fight better than our soldiers? John thought of the hunters he knew back in Montana. People who could live in the wilderness for weeks, who could hit a moving target at impossible distances, who understood patience and survival in ways no military training could teach. Yes, he said. We do. Back on Earth, a strange recruitment effort began. The government sent out calls for hunters, outdoor guides, competitive shooters, and others with what they called practical combat-adjacent skills. Many people thought it was a joke at first. Why would space aliens want deer hunters and target shooters? John Miller sat in a cold room at a military base in Colorado, watching videos of people who had answered the call. A man in his 60s hitting 5 targets in under 3 seconds. A woman tracking through dense forest, finding signs most people would miss. A farmer who could shoot coyotes from over 1,000 yards away. These are the kind of people we need, John told Amanda, who looked less convinced. They're skilled, sure, she said, but the Kral are professional warriors. They have body armor and energy weapons. So did the deer I hunted, said Frank Dawson, walking into the room uninvited. He was 65, with a weathered face and steady hands. They had natural armor and senses better than any human. Didn't help them much. John liked him immediately. Frank had been a Marine decades ago, but had spent most of his life as a hunting guide in Wyoming. He could read the land and predict animal movements like he was reading their minds. This isn't hunting deer, Amanda said. No, Frank agreed. But the principles are the same. Know your target, know the terrain, be patient, and never take a shot unless you're sure. Within 2 weeks, they had selected 500 civilians. Some were former military, but most were not. They were hunters, park rangers, competition shooters, search and rescue volunteers, people who knew how to move, shoot, and survive. Their training focused on alien environments and Kral tactics. The aliens had provided videos of Kral elite warriors in combat, and the humans studied them like hunters learning the habits of new prey. When the Earth civilians arrived at the Coalition base on a moon called Vex 7, the alien soldiers stared. The humans didn't look impressive. They wore practical clothes, not sleek uniforms. They carried modified Earth weapons, not the energy rifles the Coalition forces used. Some were young and fit, but others were middle-aged or older. Frank Dawson was the oldest at 65, which seemed ancient to the aliens who had never seen a human before. "These are your warriors?" asked Commander Drell, the Vexari officer in charge of the sector. His silver skin reflected the bright lights of the hangar bay. "They look fragile. Don't let appearances fool you," John said. He had come along as a liaison between the humans and the Coalition forces. "They know what they're doing. For your sake, I hope so," Commander Drell said. "The Senate has ordered me to place them in Sector 8. It's a forest moon, minimal Kral activity. Babysitting duty," Amanda muttered under her breath. Commander Drell pretended not to hear her. "Your humans will serve as perimeter guards only. They are to avoid direct contact with Kral forces. If they spot any activity, they are to report it immediately and withdraw." John nodded, but he saw the looks on the faces of the Earth volunteers. They hadn't come all this way to run and hide. 2 days later, the Earth contingent landed on the forest moon. It looked surprisingly like Earth, with tall trees and dense undergrowth. The air was breathable but smelled strongly of pine and something sweet like honey. The sky was a deep purple, with 2 small moons visible even in daylight. "Reminds me of northern Michigan," said Samantha Powell as she stepped off the transport. She was 32, with short brown hair and steady eyes. Back on Earth, she had been an Olympic biathlon medalist before becoming a wilderness guide. She carried a modified hunting rifle with a scope she had calibrated herself. "Spread out and set up observation posts," Frank told the group. He had, naturally, become their leader. "Teams of 2, standard hunting grid. Remember your training and stay in contact." John watched from the small command post as the Earth civilians moved into the forest. They didn't march like soldiers. They melted into the trees, finding natural cover, moving quietly like they were stalking deer. Within an hour, he couldn't see any of them, though the tracking system showed they had covered a perimeter of nearly 20 miles. "Impressive fieldcraft," Amanda admitted, "but I still don't think it will matter against Kral elites." The first test came sooner than expected. At dawn the next day, sensors detected a Kral scout ship landing 10 miles from the base. According to protocol, the humans should report the landing and withdraw. Instead, Frank sent a simple message. "Contact. Imminent. Holding positions. Will update." John tried to contact him to order a withdrawal, but Frank had already gone silent. On the tracking system, John could see the human positions remaining still as a group of red dots, Kral life signs, moved through the forest toward them. "They're going to get slaughtered," Amanda said, reaching for her communication device to call for backup. John put his hand on her arm. "Wait, let's see what happens." The Kral moved quickly through the forest, a squad of 12 elite warriors. Their gray skin helped them blend with the shadows, and their movements were practiced and efficient. They were heading directly for the Coalition base, probably planning to scout its defenses. They never made it halfway. The first Kral fell silently, a single shot through what passed for their neck. The others froze, weapons ready, looking for the attacker. Another fell before they could even move. The Kral scattered, taking cover behind trees, but it didn't help. One by one, they dropped. No Earth civilian ever fired twice from the same position. They shot and moved, just as they had been trained to do when hunting wary prey. In the command post, John and Amanda watched through drone footage as the last Krall warrior tried to return to their ship. Samantha Powell was waiting. She had climbed a tall tree and set up a position with a clear view of the landing site. The Krall never saw her. One shot and it was over. 12 Krall elites, Amanda said, her voice barely a whisper. Taken down by 12 shots, no misses. That's how hunting works, John said. You don't get second chances with a wounded bear. Commander Drell arrived at the base an hour later. His silver face, showing what John had learned, was the Vexari expression of shock. Your civilians killed an entire squad of Krall elites? He asked. How is this possible? They're good at what they do, John said simply. The Senate must be informed, Drell said. This changes our tactical approach. 3 days later, another Krall force landed, much larger this time. 50 warriors, heavily armed, moving in tight formation. They had learned caution after losing the scouting party. It didn't matter. The humans had set traps, simple but effective snares and tripwires that separated the Krall. They had studied the forest, found choke points and ambush locations. When it was over, 47 Krall were dead. The humans lost only 2 people. Word spread quickly through the coalition forces. The primitive humans, the newcomers everyone had dismissed, had done what no other species could do. They had outfought the Krall elites. In an emergency session of the Senate, Commander Drell presented his report. The human civilians have killed 61 Krall elite warriors in 1 week. Our best forces have never achieved such results. Senator Zilthox could not hide his disbelief. This is impossible. These are untrained civilians from a primitive world. Show them, John said to Commander Drell. The commander nodded and displayed the combat footage. The Senate chamber fell silent as they watched humans moving like ghosts through the forest, taking impossible shots, setting ingenious traps, working together without speaking. How? Senator Zilthox finally asked, turning to John. How can your civilians outfight elite warriors bred for combat? John thought for a moment. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Humans haven't had the advantages
of your technology. We've had to survive using our wits and skills. Every human up there knows something your warriors don't.
And what is that? Asked the Senate leader. What it's like to be the underdog, John said. And still win. News of the humans' success spread quickly throughout the coalition forces. The Galactic Senate called for an emergency meeting to discuss this unexpected development. John found himself in the center of the Senate chamber, something no human had experienced before. Explain how your civilians achieved these results, demanded Senator Zilthox. We need details, not vague statements about being underdogs. John looked around at the sea of alien faces. May I show you something? He asked, holding up a small data device the Vexari had given him. The Senate leader nodded, and John plugged the device into the central display system. An image appeared above the Senate floor, a human hunting deer on Earth. The video showed a woman moving slowly through a forest, stopping often, checking the wind, examining the ground. This is Nicole Bennett, John explained. She's one of our civilians on the forest moon. This video shows her hunting on Earth, before she ever knew aliens existed. The Senate watched as Nicole tracked a deer for hours, moving carefully, positioning herself downwind, finally taking a single perfect shot from hundreds of yards away. Now compare that to this, John said, switching to footage from the forest moon. The same woman, using the same techniques, tracking a Krall warrior. The alien never knew she was there until it was too late. Your Krall elites are fearsome warriors, John continued, but they're used to fighting other soldiers head-on. They're not used to being hunted. And your people are hunters? Asked a small blue alien senator John didn't recognize. Many of them, yes, John confirmed. But it's more than that. Our planet has thousands of different environments. Deserts, mountains, jungles, tundra. Humans have learned to survive in all of them. We've developed skills for tracking, for moving. Unseen, for improvising with limited resources. Commander Drell stepped forward. If I may add, honored Senate, I have compiled data on the Earth civilian contingent's effectiveness. In 3 weeks of operations, Their kill ratio exceeds that of our most elite special forces by a factor of 8. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. John could see disbelief on many alien faces. I propose, Commander Drell continued, that we expand the human-civilian presence in the conflict. Their skills are uniquely suited to counter-crawl tactics. I second this proposal, said another commander, a tall insect-like being. My forces witnessed the humans in action. They are remarkable. Senator Zilthox wasn't convinced. These are anecdotes and isolated incidents. We need solid evidence that these results can be replicated on a larger scale. Then let us provide that evidence, John said. Give us more challenging assignments. Let us prove what humans can do. The Senate debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. The Earth civilians would be given a more critical mission to help defend a major coalition supply base under threat of Krail attack. And more importantly, they would be allowed to train select coalition forces in their techniques. Back on the forest moon, Frank Dawson received the news with a smile. About time they figured out we know what we're doing. They're sending us 300 more people from Earth, John told him, and they want you to help train some of the coalition forces. Frank looked doubtful. Train aliens to hunt like humans. That won't be easy. Just teach them what you can, John said, starting with Commander Drell's team. The next day, Frank took a group of 20 Vexari soldiers into the forest. They moved loudly, stepping on branches, talking among themselves. Frank stopped them. First lesson, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Silence is your friend. The forest speaks if you listen. Every sound matters. The Vexari looked confused. Their translator conveyed Frank's words, but they didn't understand the concept. Their military training had taught them to move in formation, to rely on technology and numbers. Watch, Frank said. He pointed to a small creature, something like a rabbit but with 6 legs about 50 yards away. Then he disappeared into the undergrowth. The Vexari soldiers watched, bewildered as he seemed to vanish before their eyes. 2 minutes later, Frank reappeared directly behind the creature. He could have caught it with his hands, but he just gently tapped it. The startled animal bounded away. That's how you approach an enemy, Frank said, returning to the group. The Vexari tried to copy him. They failed terribly. Their movements were stiff, mechanical. Frank didn't get frustrated. He just showed them again and again, breaking down each step, each movement. Meanwhile, Samantha Powell was teaching another group about marksmanship. Forget what you know about your energy weapons, she told them. They're powerful but predictable. Learn to adapt to conditions. Wind, gravity, distance, they all affect your shot. Carlos Mendez, who had been a SWAT officer in Houston, taught urban combat techniques. Nicole Bennett showed how to read tracks and signs. Each human shared their own specialized knowledge. Progress was slow. The aliens had to unlearn centuries of military doctrine, but they were intelligent and motivated. Day by day, they improved. John watched from a distance, amazed at how well the humans adapted to teaching aliens. They simplified concepts, demonstrated repeatedly, and found ways to communicate across species barriers. Amanda stood beside him, equally impressed. I didn't think it would work, she admitted. But they're actually getting it. Humans are good teachers, John said. We've been passing on survival skills for thousands of years. A week later, the expanded Earth contingent arrived. Among them was Bill Larson, a 50-year-old former firefighter and backcountry guide from Oregon. He approached John as soon as he stepped off the transport. This is some operation you've got here, Bill said, looking around at the mixture of humans and aliens training together. Never thought I'd be teaching space aliens how to set snares. Believe it or not, we're just getting started, John replied. The Senate is watching us closely. If we succeed here, they might deploy human civilians throughout the conflict zone. Bill nodded thoughtfully. I talked to some of the military folks back home. They're not too happy about us civilians getting all the glory. They've done their part, John said. But this is different. The Krail have never encountered anything like us before. The test of their training came sooner than expected. 3 days later, a massive Krail force attacked the coalition supply base. 500 elite warriors backed by heavy weapons and air support. Commander Drell led the defense, with a mixed force of Vexari soldiers and human civilians. The battle raged for hours. The Kral expected the usual coalition tactics: defensive positions, energy weapons, predictable movements. Instead, they faced something new. The Vexari soldiers, freshly trained by humans, didn't behave as expected. They used the terrain, set ambushes, fired from unexpected angles, and constantly changed positions. And the humans themselves seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. They appeared just long enough to take a perfect shot, then vanished again. They set traps along likely approach routes. They focused on Kral commanders and specialists, disrupting their command structure. By nightfall, the Kral attack had collapsed. They retreated, leaving behind over 300 dead. The coalition forces lost just 27 defenders, only 3 of them human. In the aftermath, Commander Drell found Frank Dawson sitting quietly on a fallen tree, cleaning his rifle. "How?" the Vexari commander asked simply. "How did you know they would attack from the north ridgeline? Our intelligence suggested they would come from the east." Frank didn't look up from his task. "I didn't read any intelligence reports. I just asked myself where I would approach from if I was hunting this area. The North Ridge has better cover, more escape routes, and the sun at your back in the morning." "It's what I would have chosen." Commander Drell was silent for a long moment. "We have much more to learn from you humans." "And we, from you," Frank said, finally looking up. "But there's one thing you should understand about us. We're not just good at killing. We're good at surviving. And there's a difference." The victory at the supply base changed everything. Reports flooded into the Galactic Senate. Data analysts compiled statistics on kill counts, success rates, and combat effectiveness. The numbers told a story that no one could ignore. John stood before the full Senate again, this time with Amanda and Frank beside him. On the main display floated images and numbers that shocked the assembled aliens. "As you can see," said the Senate's chief military advisor, a veteran from a species called the Trelgar, "the human civilians have achieved unprecedented results. Their average kill count exceeds our elite special forces by a factor of 10. Their casualty rate is 1/5 of our best units. And most remarkably, they have achieved these results with relatively primitive weapons and minimal support." Senator Zilthox had been unusually quiet. Now he rose from his seat. "I wish to see the individual performance records," he said. "Show us the best of the humans." The display changed. Frank Dawson's face appeared, along with his statistics. 37 confirmed Kral kills in 4 weeks. No wounds or injuries. The Senate murmured in disbelief. "This human is 65 years old by Earth standards," Senator Zilthox noted. "Almost at the end of his natural lifespan, yet he has outperformed warriors in their prime from every species in the coalition." The display changed again. Samantha Powell, 29 kills, all headshots at extreme range. Nicole Bennett, 25 kills plus 15 traps that disabled or killed Kral warriors. Bill Larson, 22 kills, mostly using improvised explosives and ambush tactics. "And these are civilians?" asked the Senate leader. "Not military specialists?" John nodded. "Frank was in the Marines 40 years ago, but has been a hunting guide ever since. Samantha competed in shooting sports. Nicole is a professional hunter. Bill was a firefighter and wilderness guide. None have served in our military recently." "How is this possible?" the Senate leader asked. "The Kral train from birth. Their elite warriors undergo genetic enhancement. They have centuries of military tradition." Frank Dawson stepped forward. John was surprised. Frank had never wanted to speak in front of the Senate. "May I?" Frank asked. When the Senate leader nodded, Frank continued. "You all think of combat as a military thing, something soldiers do. On Earth, for most of our history, every human was a hunter, a fighter, a survivor. It's in our bones." He gestured to the statistics floating above them. "Those numbers don't tell the whole story. Every human up there brings something unique. I grew up tracking elk through mountains. Samantha trained to shoot while exhausted, heart pounding, lungs burning. Nicole learned to read the land. to know what an animal will do before it does. We didn't learn these things in military school. We learned them because on Earth, these skills matter. The Senate chamber was completely silent. Even Senator Zil Thox seemed lost in thought. What Frank is saying, John added, is that Earth's history shaped us differently. We didn't have advanced technology or peaceful coexistence. We had to adapt, improvise, and overcome. Those traits don't just disappear because we discovered space travel. The Senate leader spoke after a long pause. We must study this phenomenon further. I propose a complete analysis of human combat capabilities for the benefit of the entire coalition. With respect, Amanda said, speaking for the first time, humans aren't lab specimens, we're allies. Instead of studying us, work with us. Let us train your forces. A reasonable suggestion, the Senate leader agreed. But we also need to understand why humans possess these capabilities when other species do not. The next day, John received a classified report. The coalition had been secretly gathering data on all species in the Senate. The report contained statistics he wasn't supposed to see. Average civilian weapons ownership, less than 1% across most species. Earth, over 30%. Percentage of population with hunting experience, under 0.5% for coalition species. Earth, approximately 6%. Percentage of population with combat-adjacent skills, marksmanship, tracking, wilderness survival, under 0.1% for coalition species. Earth, estimated 15 to 20%. John showed the report to Amanda. They've been studying us all along. Can you blame them? She asked. We've surprised them. They want to know why. Meanwhile, the human-civilian approach spread throughout the coalition forces. Training centers were established on 3 different worlds. Frank Dawson found himself in charge of the largest one, teaching alien soldiers how to track, hunt, and think like humans. Samantha set up marksmanship schools. Nicole Bennett taught fieldcraft. Bill Larson specialized in improvisation and trap making. But the Kral were adapting too. Reports came in of Kral forces using new tactics, becoming more cautious, setting their own ambushes. They were learning from their defeats. The Galactic Senate ordered a special meeting restricted to the highest levels. John was surprised to be invited. Senator Zil Thox was there, along with military leaders from 12 species. The Kral leadership has requested a meeting, the Senate leader announced. They wish to discuss terms. Terms? John asked. You mean surrender? Not exactly, said Commander Drell. They wish to negotiate a settlement to the border dispute. Our intelligence suggests they are concerned about human expansion. They're afraid of us, Senator Zil Thox said bluntly. And I cannot blame them. The data we have compiled is eye-opening. He activated a display showing combat footage from across the conflict zone. Humans teaching alien allies. Alien soldiers beginning to adopt human tactics. And most disturbing to the Kral, the kill counts continuing to rise. The Kral intercepted some of our reports, Commander Drell explained. They now believe that Earth could potentially field millions of effective fighters. The prospect terrifies them. John felt uncomfortable. We didn't join the Senate to frighten anyone. We want peaceful relations with all species. Of course, the Senate leader agreed. But the Kral respect strength above all. Your people have demonstrated remarkable strength. That has opened a path to diplomacy that did not exist before. Senator Zil Thox approached John after the meeting. The blue alien seemed different now, less hostile, more thoughtful. I have a question, he said. A personal one. Go ahead, John replied. Your Earth history records show constant warfare between human groups. Yet your people have achieved space travel without destroying yourselves. How? John considered the question carefully. I think it's because the same traits that make us good fighters also help us survive. We adapt, we learn, we work together when we need to. My species evolved in peaceful oceans, Senator Zil Thox said. We never needed to hunt or fight until we met other species in space. Perhaps that is why we find your people so unsettling. Is that what we are? Unsettling? Senator Zil Thox made a gesture that John had learned was similar to a smile. Increasingly, I find you fascinating. Different perspectives can be valuable, even alarming ones. 2 days later, the coalition forces prepared for the meeting with Kral leaders. As a precaution, human civilians were positioned around the meeting site. Frank Dawson took charge of security, placing snipers and scouts with clear lines of sight. Samantha Powell settled into position on a ridge overlooking the meeting area. Through her scope, she watched alien diplomats gather. Her finger rested lightly alongside her trigger guard, not on the trigger itself. She doubted she would need to fire, but she stayed ready. "I never thought I'd be providing security for a galactic peace conference," she said quietly into her communication device. "None of us did," Frank's voice replied. "But here we are, a bunch of Earth civilians with hunting rifles, keeping watch while people from a dozen worlds decide the fate of star systems." Samantha smiled to herself. Not bad for a species that only achieved spaceflight a decade ago. The peace talks with the Kral lasted 3 days. John attended as part of the coalition delegation, watching as representatives from a dozen worlds negotiated borders, trade routes, and security arrangements. The Kral delegates kept glancing at the humans in the room. Their body language showed fear mixed with respect. "They keep looking at us," John whispered to Amanda. "Can you blame them?" she replied. "Their warriors have nightmares about Earth civilians with hunting rifles." When the talks ended, a peace treaty was signed. The Kral agreed to withdraw from disputed territories and establish a demilitarized zone along the border. In return, the coalition would respect Kral sovereignty over their home systems and include them in future trade agreements. As the Kral delegation prepared to leave, their leader approached John. The tall, gray-skinned alien towered over him, bony ridges on his head catching the light. "You are from Earth," the Kral leader said through his translator. It wasn't a question. "Yes," John replied. "I'm John Miller." "I am War Commander Kraz," the Kral said. "Your people have earned our respect. This is rare." John wasn't sure how to respond. "We didn't want war," he said finally. "We just wanted to help our allies." "The way you fight," Kraz continued, "it is not like other species. It is personal, intimate. You do not rely only on technology or numbers." "That's how we survived on Earth," John explained. "We had to understand our prey, our environment, our own limitations." Kraz made a gesture with his hand that John didn't understand. "Some among my officers wished to capture humans to study your methods. I forbade it. Some things should be respected, not dissected." With that strange comment, the Kral leader turned and left. John watched him go, wondering if they had just made an ally or if the Kral would return one day, better prepared to face human tactics. A week later, the Galactic Senate held a special session. Earth's status within the Senate was the only item on the agenda. John, Amanda, and Ambassador Kelly sat together, waiting as the Senate leader called the meeting to order. "Recent events have demonstrated that our initial assessment of Earth was incomplete," the Senate leader began. "Humans have proven themselves to be valuable members of our galactic community." Senator Zilthox stood. John expected another critique, another reason why humans weren't ready for full membership. Instead, the blue alien surprised him. "I move that Earth be granted full membership status within the Galactic Senate," Zilthox announced. "Their contributions to our collective security cannot be denied." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was unexpected, especially coming from Zilthox, who had been Earth's strongest critic. "I second the motion," said another senator, a tall, insect-like being. "The humans have earned their place among us." The vote was overwhelmingly in favor. Earth, after just 3 years of contact with alien life, became a full member of the Galactic Senate. Ambassador Kelly accepted the formal credentials, her hands shaking slightly with emotion. After the ceremony, Senator Zilthox approached them. "There is something else you should know," he said quietly. "The Senate Military Council has completed its analysis of human combat capabilities." He handed John a small data device. "The findings are significant. Many species fear what humans might become if you apply your natural combat aptitude to advanced galactic technology." "We're not conquerors," John protested. "We just want to be part of the community." I believe you, Zilthok said. But fear is not always rational. Some senators have already proposed restrictions on human access to certain technologies. Ambassador Kelly looked alarmed. That would violate the Senate's equal treatment provisions. Indeed, Zilthox agreed. Which is why I opposed these measures, but you should be aware of the concerns. Later that evening, John sat alone in Earth's embassy, reviewing the data Zilthox had given him. The statistics were remarkable. In simulated conflicts, forces using human tactics outperformed traditional military units in 97% of scenarios. The report concluded that a fully mobilized Earth, equipped with galactic technology, could potentially become the dominant military force in the known galaxy within one standard decade. Amanda found him there, still reading. Bad news? She asked. Complicated news, John replied. The Senate is both impressed by us and afraid of us. So what do we do? John thought for a moment. We need to show them we're more than just good fighters. We need to share other human qualities, our art, our music, our capacity for compassion. 3 months later, Earth hosted its first galactic cultural exchange. Thousands of representatives from across the Senate worlds came to see human civilization firsthand. They toured cities, visited natural parks, attended concerts and art exhibitions. Human families welcomed alien guests into their homes. Frank Dawson hosted Senator Zilthox at his cabin in Wyoming. The blue alien seemed fascinated by Earth's wilderness. You lived here alone? Zilthox asked as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset behind snow-capped mountains. Not alone, Frank said. The mountains, the animals, the weather, they're all company if you know how to listen. The same skills that make you a great hunter, Zilthox observed. Frank nodded. The same skills that helped us against the Krell. Patience, observation, respect for your environment. My people fear those skills might one day be turned against us, Zilthox admitted. Fear is natural, Frank said. But so is friendship and trust once it's earned. On the final day of the cultural exchange, the Galactic Senate convened a special session on Earth itself, in a large hall built specifically for the occasion. John sat between Amanda and Frank as Ambassador Kelly addressed the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. Earth has much to learn from the galactic community, she said. And perhaps we have some things to teach as well. Not just about fighting, but about adapting, about finding creative solutions, about reaching for the stars even when they seem beyond our grasp. After the session, John walked outside with Frank. They stood looking up at the night sky, now filled with the lights of alien ships in orbit. Did you ever think we'd end up here? John asked. Respected by species from across the galaxy because a bunch of hunters and outdoors people outfought elite alien warriors? Frank chuckled. Can't say. I did, but it makes a kind of sense. Humans have always been good at surprising ourselves. What happens next, do you think? Frank looked thoughtful. We'll find our place, not as conquerors or warriors, but as protectors maybe, people who understand both strength and restraint. As if to emphasize his point, a group of Vexari children walked by, accompanied by human guides. The alien youngsters were excitedly pointing at birds, trees, everything that made Earth unique to their eyes. Look at that, Frank said. They're not afraid. They're curious. That's the real human strength right there. Making the strange familiar, turning the unknown into an adventure. John nodded. From hunters to teachers. Not a bad way to join the galaxy. Not bad at all, Frank agreed. High above them in the Senate ship orbiting Earth, Senator Zilthox was updating the official record. His final entry read, Humanity's place in the galactic community remains unique. Their natural combat abilities initially caused concern, but their greater gifts may be their adaptability, creativity, and willingness to share knowledge. The human concept of teaching to fish rather than giving fish shows wisdom beyond their years as a spacefaring species. I no longer fear human potential. I welcome it.